The Terminator had some harsh words for so-called anti-maskers, so-called anti-vaxxers, and those harsh words don't just apply to them. They actually apply to all advocates for freedom. What may surprise you is that a lot more people agree with his position than we may initially realize. Just when you think you know someone, who would have guessed the Terminator is an authoritarian? Just want to start out by saying that I am not advising anybody to not take the vaccines, to not wear masks. I am not speaking about the efficacy of the vaccines. I am not providing any medical advice or opining on the vaccines or their usefulness. I am not doing that in this video. Arnold Schwarzenegger was recently on a podcast, on a show with Deanna G and Alexander Vindman. They were talking about the policy surrounding COVID, what the government is doing, what the government should be doing. And the conversation turned to people who may not want to socially distance, some people who don't want to wear masks, some people who don't want to take the vaccine. And right now, all over the country, governments and state governments, local governments are issuing mandates that are forcing either mask wearing or forcing people to take vaccines, compelling people to take vaccines. A lot of people are concerned that the government is overstepping its boundaries in forcing people and trying to control what people wear on their bodies or what people put in their bodies. For all the people that feel this way, Arnold Schwarzenegger has a message for you. Screw your freedom. Screw your freedom. I guess being pro-choice is out the window. And that's what's really interesting, because so many of these so-called pro-choice people are some of the loudest, the most vocal advocates of these laws and these mandates of compelling people to put something in their body that they may not feel comfortable with, or wearing something on their body that they don't wear comfortable with. What's changed? Because the new mantra now is no longer your body, your choice. It's your body, our choice. But Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I guess people like him, have an excuse for this, have a reason for this. They're saying, well, people are dying. They're saying by breathing, he says by breathing, you can actually cause other people to die. And of course, let's be clear, a lot of people have died. COVID actually exists. But he says the only way you can protect other people is by wearing a mask, by getting vaccinated, by washing your hands and socially distancing. But is that correct? Let's assume it is. If breathing can be considered dangerous, if government can regulate our bodies to that extent, are there any limits on what government can do? Are there any limits on the government's control over our bodies? And there were people who would cheer and say, yes, they would cheer what I just said. They would say this is tyranny. But how did we arrive at a point where current government officials and the former governor of California can disregard people's freedom and bodily autonomy so casually? Let's say Arnold is 100% right about the vaccine saving lives, is completely right about that's what needs to be done to protect people. Is that justification for overriding people's control over their own bodies? Is that justification for the government saying and forcing us to do with our bodies what we may not want to do and what we may not be comfortable with? Is that justification? Some will say yes, but let's remember that's also going to apply to other life-threatening events. And there are people who are going to say, well, it already does apply to other events. It already applies. These laws aren't new. Already children are compelled to take vaccines to go to school, and the government controls what people can't put in their bodies with its anti-drug laws. Those people will say, hey, you don't have a problem with those laws. Why are you complaining now? And guess what? They have a point. If you are completely cool with the government telling you and telling grown adults what they can and can't put in their body when it comes to heroin, cocaine, marijuana, how can you complain now? If you are completely okay with the government telling parents that they must vaccinate their children before they go inside a public school, why is this different? You have already supported government exercising control over our bodies. Why are you complaining now? This is just the latest example. You know that slippery slope? We're on it. And it's not just a slippery slope, it's actually precedent. The government will extend its authority into a specific arena, and if you support it in that narrow fashion, being exercised in some narrow fashion, it won't be long before the government starts expanding and starts exercising that authority in a much broader manner. I, however, do not support the government mandating vaccines for children. I, however, do not support the government controlling what we can and cannot put into our bodies. When I say pro-choice, I mean it. I think all of these are perfect examples of the government encroaching further and further upon our rights. How do we get to a point where government is forcing parents to put certain things into their children's body? Well, Giving the government custody and control of your children is probably where it started, but that's a story for another day. But the people that already supported mandatory vaccination for children, that supported these anti-drug laws, those people are essentially among the crowd that are saying, screw your freedom. When we advocate for the government to exercise control over other people's bodies, we're actually advocating for the government to exercise control over our bodies. There is more to the story, and I have to call out these people that are supporting these current vaccine mandates that claim to be pro-choice. The people who claim to believe in the mantra of my body, my choice. This is clearly no longer their position. These people will say, this is different. People are dying. And I'll say, well, there's a lot of people who think with abortions, people are dying. There are a lot of people who think that abortions also involve taking people's lives and human deaths. You may say that an embryo isn't alive, but there are experts that argue otherwise. And I want to bring your attention to a case challenging Roe v. Wade. That case is currently in the Supreme Court. That case will be heard before the Supreme Court in October of this year. So right now, all of the people that are making impassioned and persuasive cases as to why the government should be allowed and should be controlling our bodies to such an extent that people can be forcibly vaccinated, I want you to know that you're actually making arguments that will be used to justify the government exercising control when it comes to abortions in just a few short months. When you advocate against the freedom of others, you advocate against your own freedom. If you agree with the sentiment of screw your freedom, it doesn't just apply to drugs, to childhood vaccinations. It doesn't just apply to COVID vaccines or masks. It doesn't end there. The government is not going to stop encroaching on our freedoms. Screw your freedom will apply to abortion. Screw your freedom will apply to cigarettes. Screw your freedom will apply to sugary drinks and snacks. Diabetes kills. Cancer kills. Why wouldn't the government, in the interest of public health, public safety, make laws about that? Why wouldn't the government, in the interest of public safety and public health, ban those things as well? Screw your freedom will apply to fast food. Screw your freedom will apply to so many aspects of our lives. And there are so many of you out there that will complain, will protest, will rise up in response to further restrictions, despite the fact that you were right there next to Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, screw your freedom. As always, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you disagree with me and you're like, screw that, screw your freedom, I don't care. I want everybody to be mandated to take the vaccine, mandated to wear their mask, mandated to do anything regarding this COVID situation. If that's the way you feel, go ahead and give me the thumbs down. But don't just give me the thumbs down and run away. Give me the thumbs down and state why in the comment section below. I'll see you next time.